I know when you're having a rough day, you wish there was somebody that could come and tell you just what to do, how to stop this grief storm, how to start taking steps forward. I felt that way too in my own losses. But I'm happy to tell you there is hope, and there is a clear pathway that has been made through the valley of the shadow of death. It's called Grief Guide Ministries, and there are a variety of books that offer healing care, hands-on instruction, that you literally have a map now to begin walking out. Go to Amazon.com and look for my name, Dr. Gayla Holley. There is healing for you after loss. I want to say a great big welcome to some very important and special people that have come alongside in Grief Guide Ministries to make a difference in the lives of those that are suffering loss. You know, women that are in loss, and men too, are pretty fragile. They're gullible, they're easily to be led. They focus on things that have just happened, so they're traumatized. They are depressed. Sometimes they're way too trusting. They're sorry, they're blue. Sometimes they're dealing with reproach or regret. And so all those things are weighing in their mind. So they're easy to be taken advantage of. On this particular podcast lesson, you know, if I was going to give it a name, and I think I might just call it this, I'm going to call it a fraudcast, because we're going to be dealing with fraud that happens to people that are in loss and grief. And so I want to say a big, big welcome to Janie Sala, who is the Assistant District Attorney in the Montgomery County in the District Attorney's Office, working with this particular area, Financial Crimes and Forfeiture Division. Welcome, Jamie. I'm so glad you're here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I love coming out and speaking on these types of topics because it's something my office, wants to ensure that we're protecting people not only within Montgomery County, but across the United States as well as the world. So thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, you're going to have a very broad audience today from, at this point, when this is being recorded, 71 nations. And so we appreciate your time. And I'm so grateful that you have an interest in this area, because in Grief Guide, we have already begun to deal with especially widows that have been taken great advantage of, and fraud has destroyed some of their lives financially. So I want to just jump right in here and ask you some questions and give you the freedom to just give us some experiences and wisdom. How do we navigate this type of thing in loss? So the first thing I want to say is, what are the buttons that scammers like to push?
Well, what we consistently see is scammers never start with logic, right? They start with emotions. They play off of those emotions. They're extremely skilled and talented in doing that. So the buttons they look for are fear and trust, vulnerability. Those are the people they are seeking out, and oftentimes those folks are the ones who have recently lost someone or are going through a very tragic event. And so they know what buttons to push: the fear, the trust, the emotions. And they take those people who are already vulnerable and push more buttons by making the situation seem like something really bad's going to happen, or trying to convince them that they are maybe going to help someone that they care about, or just in general. And especially as Christians, we are bred to help others. And so that is another button that they push and manipulate, is because you want to help. And you, as a Christian, want to be on this earth, and you always want to help. You see a need, you feel a need, and they push those buttons and take that. Women, too, are especially vulnerable. Men are, absolutely. This is not a single sex type of scheme. It's across the board, and age doesn't factor either. Young, old, doesn't matter. But women are especially vulnerable, and here's why. I believe we as women, we're fixers, right? We're here to fix a problem. Again, see a need, fill a need. And so we always also think that we can just take it on all ourselves and we can handle a situation and we're strong, we're emotional, but we also are empathetic and sympathetic. So those are strong buttons that they like to push because we want to be helpful and kind and fix things. And so we'll talk about it in a little bit, but the urgency is the biggest thing. They want to rush you. They want to prey on your emotions and your vulnerability and make this quick and say, this needs urgency. This needs to happen now, or something really bad's going to happen. And so those are kind of the buttons they really go after.
Right. So people that have lost someone, they're already dealing with the trauma of that loss. So they're not really thinking clearly. And so
Correct.
when you tell them you need to hurry, then they definitely, feel
Right.
the pressure of, okay, I've got to hurry.
Absolutely. And you've already got, as a person who's has had a loss, you already have so many things going on, right? You're
Right.
having to perhaps plan a funeral or plan for the future. I know oftentimes women, particularly, are guilty of not paying much attention to the finances that our husbands put in place, and then suddenly they're gone. And we're scrambling to figure out what we even have, what we own, what needs to happen next. You add children on top of that, even when they're grown, you are their mother or you are their father. If you've lost your wife and their mother, you have to deal with their emotions on top of that. So you have so much going on. It's like the perfect storm, and they know what to push, and they want to help you. That's the other thing. They say urgency, but they also couch it in a frame of, we're going to help you. You don't need to worry about this. You don't need to take care of this. You have enough on your plate. So it's also them trying to empathize, sympathize with the grieving party, so that they're like, you know what, you're going to take care of this. This is great. And suddenly they've taken all your money, or it's the fraud or scheme.
Wow. So true. And we have already seen different widows that have lost all of their savings. One lady that we know has lost her house due to these types of scams. So just tell me, what would be, in your experience, what would be the top five scams to watch out for?
What you need to watch out for, and what we are seeing in our office and across the world, honestly, is the number one. And this isn't ranked in an order of seriousness. The first one I'll talk about is impersonation scams. These are oftentimes people who are contacting someone either via phone or email, text messaging as well, impersonating law enforcement, impersonating courts, impersonating organizations, and reaching out to get donations. Or in the case of law enforcement and court systems, we see a lot of scammers reaching out and saying, you have a warrant for your arrest. You didn't pay a traffic ticket. You need to take care of this now, or you will be arrested. Or we have, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department is soliciting money for, to pay for a new jail, things like that. And the inmates will suffer if we, or the guards will suffer if we don't do this. Can you please donate some money? Well, I'm here to tell you that the law enforcement does not reach out that way. They don't call you to tell you you have a warrant. Those things don't happen, but that's the impersonation. They're impersonating someone important. In fact, most recently, I've gotten some text messages that appear to be from the United States government. They are not. They do not stop at local agencies. These impersonation schemes also do so much to incorporate federal organizations, verify your voting registration and things like that. So we see a lot of impersonation. The second one, that's probably the biggest one that I would argue or state that's involved with people who are grieving, and that's the romance scam. Romance scam. They build trust over time. they sympathize, they empathize, they are quickly saying they love you. And then suddenly they're asking for money or they're asking for personal information to help them in a critical situation. We see this a lot because we live in a world of social media, right? And Facebook, particularly, and other ones where you post your entire life, what I had for dinner last night, where I went on vacation, that I just lost my husband, that I'm grieving. Please pray for me. You don't even give a lot of details, but you give something, and then suddenly someone's monitoring that, and they have a hook. It's what
Mm,
they hook you. They're like, okay, I'm going to reach out. And suddenly they're accidentally messaging you.
mm,
Or maybe they message you on the post and say, I just recently lost my husband. I know what you're going through. Why don't you private message me and we can talk and I'll pray for you? They use that a lot. They use, especially when they know you're a Christian or you've mentioned anything on your post that you believe in God, they'll use that as a hook to say, well, let me say I'll pray for them. And then suddenly you have trauma bond, is what I call that. I've lost my husband, you've lost your husband. Now we're best friends. Or, listen, I lost my wife, you lost your husband. I know how lonely you are. And they prey on that, right? And so those romance scams happen quickly. And we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of the red flags here. But they're saying I love you within days, maybe a week. And I'm not saying love at first sight doesn't happen. I'm not saying it does. Praise God, it does. And it happens a lot. But usually in these situations, it is a huge red flag. So we're seeing a lot of romance scams. And then we have tech support scams. That's a real common one. You receive some type of email or text, perhaps your cloud is about to shut down. You haven't paid this, or you need to update this, or you need more space. Some of those are absolutely legitimate, but oftentimes those messages, you signed up for Geek Squad. If you didn't do this, click on this link. Those are scams. Because typically, if you don't remember going to buy it, you didn't buy it. So you kind of got to stop and verify that in that sense. But oftentimes we see where even they contact people over the phone and they say your computer system has been breached. Log in, and then they ask for remote access to your system. I will fix it. We'll get this fixed. And then suddenly you've given them remote access and they've taken everything, your passwords, your money, they have it all, because where do we store our stuff? We store it on our computers, on our phones. And
yeah.
so we have to be very careful of that. So tech support scams are very commonplace. We also are seeing an uprise in investment, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Those types of things where you get a high return for little investment, or I had a case where you were guaranteed all your money back. So you're not going to be out anything. So why not invest, right? So give me $1,000 and I guarantee you'll get your $1,000 back. But I'm also telling you, you're probably going to make 10 times in a month, right? Too good to be true. But, if someone is asking you to invest and guarantee your investment back, that's a red flag. But we have that along with the crypto scams and Bitcoin. We have a lot of times where they create an emergency, they ask you to withdraw money, they ask you to go put it in one of these Bitcoin kiosks, and that is always a scam. Never, ever, ever use a Bitcoin kiosk. It's a complete fraud. I'm not saying Bitcoin is always a fraud, but those kiosks, those are scams. Just they should be labeled scam machines, because once your money goes in there, it's gone. And that's that. So nobody legitimately is going to ask you to pay any emergency or debt with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and those types of things. The last one I'd say as our top five is payment scams. Again, this also involves Bitcoin, sometimes crypto, but this is, hey, you didn't pay a traffic ticket and we need you to pay this. We have one going around in the state of Texas right now that is, you have a toll violation And if you don't pay this now, there'll be a warrant issued out for your arrest, which most people don't want to go to jail and kind of freak out about. Click on this link and pay. But oftentimes the huge red flag on those is the payment is pay with a gift card from Walmart, do a wire transfer, unusual payment methods. I will tell you right here and now, the government is never going to ask you to pay with Walmart gift cards. I,
Mm.
to this day, have yet to been able to pay my federal income tax with Walmart gift cards. It just doesn't happen. But when they're creating urgency in you,
Yeah.
especially when you're vulnerable, you do what they ask, and
Right.
then you're suddenly thinking, "Up, this was probably a scam." And so, if anyone's asking for money in an unusual way, it's a red flag.
Yes. Makes perfect sense. And all of us at some point have probably touched on these things right here in different ways and different subject matter. But until somebody says, look for this, it passes right past you.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
just live in an innocent place, I guess, where you're not focused on that, of course, unless you're law enforcement or working in the legal system. But so we are vulnerable in a multitude of different ways that deal with our commonality of life, the everyday things. And that's where they're getting us.
Yes, absolutely. And I cannot say this enough. Um, they're very skilled. So anyone who feels like, and I'm just going to say this, in my house with my boys, we don't say stupid or idiot or anything like that. But you're not stupid. If this happens, and it happens to all of us at some point in time, you're not stupid. You're not ignorant. You're vulnerable, and they know how to take care of that, or to whittle into feed off of that and get you to do things you normally wouldn't do. So that's why these types of podcasts and interviews are very important, to hear it again, because when you hear it and multiple times, you go, okay, yes, yes, I need to make sure that I'm vigilant, because I'm not stupid. No one's stupid in regards to this. They're just very skilled and very good. And that's why they do what they do.
And they're successful at it.
Yes, very successful, unfortunately.
So, our listeners who are listening to this podcast lesson today, I recommend that you listen to this again and again so that you can become knowledgeable about the different ways. Because hearing this kind of lesson one time may still not protect you unless you've heard it several times to eliminate the possibility of being caught out. So, answer this for me. Do you happen to have any personal stories of scammers that have happened to you personally?
I absolutely do, and it was not that long ago. So let me just say a little bit about myself, just so you know. I'm 53 this August. So I've been around for a while. I've been practicing law for 27 years. I have been a prosecutor and a defense attorney all that time. So I've been immersed in criminal cases as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. My husband is law enforcement. Okay, 24 years as a police officer. I grew up in a family that was very vigilant of things. So you would think, okay, Jamie is never going to be the victim of a fraud or a scam. And so what happened was, our youngest is fostered to adopt, and we have been going through a difficult legal process in a neighboring county. And so what happened was, we had a situation that was very critical. We were trying to get a temporary restraining order to stop some visits that were detrimental to him. And the judge just wouldn't make a ruling. She just kept resetting. She had to go to lunch. She had to do all kinds of stuff, which just increased my emotions. I'm a pretty level-headed person, but it upset me. I was crying because this was important to us and didn't seem important to the system. And it was very frustrating. So I was very vulnerable in that sense. And I had parked in a parking garage in this county, and the parking garage only had QR codes. There were probably 1,000 of them. I mean, they were just everywhere you turn, they were. I had to park on the top level, which was on the roof because it was packed. But there are no people on site. There's not a human being, right? And this goes to the fact that we are moving into a society where we don't have people to interact with, and we're stuck in kind of a situation. And so nobody else was there. I had left. I was crying. I rushed up the stairs to get out of there, just to get out of the situation, drive off, call my husband, tell him how terrible court was, etc. So very emotional, very vulnerable. I walked up the 6 flights of stairs and just happened to scan the QR code that was right there by the door. And I walk over to my vehicle. I close the door. I take some deep breaths because I'm emotional. And I look down to finish doing my payment for my parking. And I had suddenly joined a gym
Oh
uh,
no.
every month. And congratulations. And I was like, what just happened? And it was great in one sense. Bank of America was my card, and they immediately shut like my card, cancel my card, right? And so there I was, stuck in another county on the roof of a parking facility. I have one credit card. So they had shut it down. They called me and said, we suspect fraud because you're not normally in this county, et cetera, et cetera. And why would you join a gym? You don't live in this county. So that was great. What was terrible was the fact that I had no other way to pay.
Oh,
And there's nobody on site to pay anyway because it's all QR codes. So what am I going to do? Scan another QR code?
right. Well, my
And
goodness.
so I stopped. I talked to Bank of America. I actually got off the phone with Bank of America and I called them back from the number in the back of my card because here's what we'll talk about. If someone calls you and says there's fraud, you don't know that they're a valid person calling you,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So my caller ID said Bank of America. Okay, it did. But it was the same number in the back of my card, but still, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. They can alter that. It's called spoofing. And so they can capture a phone number and make it appear legitimate. But I got off the phone with him. I said, let me call you back. I pulled out my card and I called the number, reached them. They had, in fact, called me. So I verified that. And then they said, we're going to issue you a new card immediately and all of that. And so that was great. They're like, this is fraud. Don't worry about the charges. We're taking it all off. Now I drive down to the bottom and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay to get out of the garage.
Thanks.
Luckily, the gate opened. I honestly, I may have driven through it because I was so upset, but I waited and it opened automatically. And so luckily I was able to leave, but I was kind of stuck in this very vulnerable position. And what I would have done, had the gate not opened, is I would have called my husband, and I would have said, can you please help me figure this out, pay, get me out of this garage, etc. And so it was a very awful situation, right? Very minimal. I will say this, the gym membership was like $30 a month, but still, to me and my family, $30 a month is a dent, right? And
Still.
so it doesn't matter the amount that they're trying to get from you. Everything's important to us. And so that personally happened to me. Luckily, we got it taken care of relatively quickly, although I will tell you the parking garage harassed me for months for my payment and threatened to issue some type of citation for me. And I called them up and I reported, listen, y'all have a QR code. Here's the location, and here it's a scam. So, and this is the thing, somebody went in there. I don't think the parking garage was participating in it, but somebody went in there and put up their QR code to scam people. And I don't know how many people that's happened to. I don't know how many people weren't paying attention and thought they paid their parking because the arm opens and you leave. So, but that personally happened to me last May, so about a year ago.
My
Um,
goodness.
and yes, yes,
So something that easy, just that
yes,
quick electronically turned into a problem that you had to deal
yes.
with.
Well, and then think about this. The other thing is that when that happens, I have to get a new card. I have to
Yes,
change all my automatic payments. It's a huge life altering event in that sense because you have to figure out all of that stuff. And sometimes we just are like, it's too much work, especially again, when you're in a vulnerable position and you're just trying to manage getting up in the morning. And you're
right,
just trying to manage going to work again or whatever the situation is. Those little things you're almost like it's $29 a month. Who cares? It's not even worth it, but it is. And so, and they know that. And if you think about it, if they scammed 100 people that day at $29 a month, I mean, that's not a bad income for them. And they're not just doing it at one place. So
right,
they're raking in thousands and thousands daily
right,
by sitting on their couch and putting a QR code or whatever somewhere, but sitting on their couch and not lifting a finger. They're making thousands and thousands of dollars by stealing it from innocent people.
right, stealing it. And that's just one parking garage. And you said there were multiple QR codes.
Yes, they were all
Imagine.
over. So I don't know how many of those could have been. My guess is there's not just one
Yeah,
because what are the odds of all the QR
right.
codes that I get that one? So there were probably multiple ones, and those are easy just to slap up
Yeah,
anywhere over a legitimate QR code, perhaps.
right,
And so it's
right.
very easy for them to get in your wallet or your bank account.
Yeah. Something that simple. Thank you for sharing that experience.
Yes,
I'm
of
sorry it
course.
happened to even you working in the
Thank
fire
you. Well,
department.
and that's the thing, right? It happens to me, so it can happen to anyone,
Yeah,
and that's the point. And we have to remember that no one is protected.
right.
Even scam we've had cases where scammers got scammed. So I mean, they're even vulnerable, and we laugh about it because we're like, you kind of get what you reap what you sow. But at the same time, even the
Yeah,
scammers are scamming the scammers.
yeah,
So
they're even vulnerable. So what would you say would be the cardinal rule to protect yourself?
the cardinal rule ultimately is never act on urgency without verifying independently. What I like to coin it as is stop, pause, and verify. It's kind of like stop, drop, and roll,
Okay?
but this is stop, drop, or pause everything you're doing and verify yourself.
Verify yourself.
Yes, and so that goes back to what I was talking about before. We have situations where they have complicated systems where they can spoof, is what it's called, a phone number. So before, people would call and you'll see it on the emails too. That's one of the things to look for. You get an email that says you just signed up for Geek Squad and you're like, I don't remember signing up for that. And it says if you didn't, click on the link. Never click on links you don't know, but don't click on that. At the bottom, it also has a number. Call this number. Well, if you stop and then you pause and you Google Best Buy, which is where Geek Squad usually comes out of, and you look at their contact number, that number does not match the email number.
Mm,
Okay. So it used to be very, if you stopped and paused and tried to verify, it would be clear. Yeah, that's not the legitimate number. Now, the complicated systems that we have, they can capture a phone number. So they can capture that Best Buy legitimate phone number, and it appears as if they're calling from that legitimate number. So remember my story, Bank of America, who knows? That could have very well been because it was within a minute. That was very quick, right?
yeah.
So it could have been someone spoofing that number and then they go, "Well, what is your password? What is this? Let's check it." You shouldn't have to give Bank of America your password. They have a way to look that up and things like that. But still, at the same time, if I look down at the number and it says Bank of America and I Google and it's the same number, I think it's legit. And I'm talking to a legitimate person when that's not the case. If you stop and say, well, can I call you right back? Take out your card or Google, then call that number. Probably 85 to 90% of the time, you're going to find out that no one from Bank of America or Amazon called you. It was a scam. And so they're very sophisticated in that. So it's stop, pause, and verify. So there is no emergency you can't get off the phone with, okay?
Yeah.
And even if you have to, a lot of times you'll see these scammers try to keep you on the phone. That's the sense of urgency, the control. But once you cut that off, you cut their power. And they may call you back. I've had a case where a little old couple was being called consistently by the same number, constantly harassing them and even threatening. You hung up on me. You can't hang up on me, things like that, which scare people. They were savvy. They reported it and didn't fall for it. But at the same time, they will harass you. But they want to keep you on the phone. So if you have to go, oh, I'm sorry, my daughter's calling, it's an emergency, to get off because you don't feel comfortable just saying, well, I'll call you right back, because they'll be like, no, you can't call me back. This is an emergency. Then you say, I'm sorry, I have to take care of this. Hang up, because
Up.
pause, just
Right.
pause, and then verify. Call your, whoever you need to call, and get someone else involved, because that they're banking on isolation, grief, and emotion.
Right. They're hoping you will never contact anybody, that your nerves will set in, and that you'll just stay with them and let them just lead you right down the garden path to problems.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you this. You mentioned earlier, and I want you to just kind of go into depth with this,
Okay.
especially on the subject of dealing with widows and loss. What are some relationship scams that should be watched out for?
I think some of the biggest one is just the romance scam. We do see kind of the friendship a little bit, but we see more the romance scams. We see, and those are the most devastating, right?
Right.
Because those aren't just after your money, they are after inflicting emotional damage to you, because that's how they get the money. They really establish a connection, whether that's through expressing that they had a similar loss or things like that, or just empathizing and sympathizing with the other person, which I I have lost my father 5 years ago this May, and it's still very raw. And if someone were to start talking to me about the loss of their father, I would bond with them. I would connect with them. Again, it's that trauma bond,
Trauma
and they
bond.
utilize, yeah, trauma bond. They utilize that to say we are very similar. We've gone through something similar, and I don't want you to suffer like me. Perhaps theirs is longer. Like, I lost my husband 5 years ago. You lost your wife last week or a month ago. So, like, I've been there. I've been through. Let me help you,
Hmm.
guide you through it. Right? They're offering counseling services,
Hmm.
friendship, and then suddenly it's quickly love. Like, you don't need to be alone. And I think that's one of the biggest vulnerabilities, especially for widows or widowers, is that you're suddenly alone, especially if you've been married for a long period of time. But it doesn't matter if you lost your spouse a year after you were married, or 30 years,
Yeah.
But they prey on that you're lonely. And so they really dig in uh, to those situations. So again, I hope everyone who has lost someone that's in a marriage relationship finds another love on this earth, because you deserve to always have love. But you have to be very careful. And I think that's the most vulnerable thing, is trying to identify with your loss and your emotions, and counsel you to get through the grief. Because a lot of times when we lose someone, everyone's there for the funeral. Everyone's there for a couple weeks after with, a meal train, and then suddenly everyone's gone.
Yeah.
And that includes family, right? Because a lot of times you have widows or widowers where their adult children live in other states, things like that. And suddenly you are completely alone. And that's where they get in,
Yeah.
right? You don't need to be alone. You don't deserve your kids, they're somewhere else. They don't care enough about you. And that's another thing. They isolate. They isolate, right? You want companionship and you want a fellowship, yet their scheme is to isolate you and separate you so that they can then separate you from your money or your property or whatever it is they're after. And so
Yeah. We've
the
seen
biggest red
that.
flag for those is they're professing some type of deep feelings or love so quickly within days, weeks, things like that, maybe a month, but usually it's very quickly. And then suddenly they have an emergency.
Yeah.
Um, and so the other red flag for those is oftentimes it's all online. It's not in person. These scams can happen in person. Back in the day, a long time ago, there were a lot of confidence men. It's what we called them that would meet ladies places and kind of romance them and do that. But oftentimes, this is all online. And the red flags are they won't FaceTime you, they won't meet you, they won't even do a phone call. And usually they make up an excuse. I'm in the military, I'm overseas, I don't have good internet connection, things of that nature. Those are pretty big red flags. If someone loves me, they're going to be willing to at least get on FaceTime or call me and talk to me. But even then, we have an up and coming technology called AI that you have to be very careful of. They can do FaceTime calls with an AI person. So
Oh
you
my
have to just,
goodness.
yes. So, we've had in our office, we've had several women who have felt that they were dating Elon Musk. Or famous country western singers, and they met on Facebook. They said, "Hey, send me a friend request." It's a fake account. Then their private messaging, but they never will do a FaceTime call
Mm,
or anything like that. But I recently saw a case in a different state where the AI created the celebrity and it looked like the celebrity on the FaceTime. And so that's where we're moving. So we have to even be careful of that. But it's quick. And listen, not that the people we love don't ask us for money, because they oftentimes do. But, if you've just recently met someone and now they're asking for money, then that is the biggest red flag, right?
right
Because
there.
if they love us, but it's always something. I can't get to my funds, my bank account, it got frozen in error because I was a victim of identity fraud. Could you,
I've
send
heard
me a
that.
couple $100? Or could you, the other thing they do is have you move money. It's not just taking your money.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a term called mule, and we oftentimes hear that in the drug trade, but it happens with money as well. So they go, "Hey, would you mind? I'm going to send you a cashier's check. If you cash this, can you then send it off to this person?" What in effect they're actually doing is having you launder money for some other nefarious purpose, right? So if they're asking you for money or asking you to move money, those are our romance scams.
Romance scams. Big deal. Big deal.
Yes.
I
Yes.
recently have heard of widows that are putting something new into place that is seemingly helping them, and that is for someone else to check their accounts for people that are asking for friend requests, and that
Absolutely.
you do not accept friends on your own at all. And you can put filters in place with a live person to where if you fit this criteria, you're automatically nope, 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 as a secondary precaution. Do you think that's a good idea?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have had a situation multiple times where you think you're safe. You look at the person who sent you a friend request and you see that they're friends with one of your friends, maybe a couple of your friends. And you're like, "Oh, they must be okay." I oftentimes will go to the account and I will look at their pictures and see what they're posting. A lot of times it's a private account. I definitely don't accept that. But another rule of thumb I always do is that if they're friends of one of my friends, I reach out to that friend and say, "Hey, do you know Joe Blow?" And oftentimes they're like, "No, I friended him and it was real weird. He started private messaging me." And then I'm like, "That's a scam." But I think it's really good, especially when we are perhaps in a vulnerable time of our lives, to ask someone else to verify. That's part of that verify. Get someone else involved. And
Get
that's a key in all the time. Check your bank accounts, things like that. Have that extra layer of protection and don't just try to handle it yourself. And that's not giving up your freedom. That's just protecting yourself.
is protecting yourself. So let's talk about phone calls. You mentioned FaceTime. That I've never even thought about that before, but that is a huge deal. What are the red flags for phone calls we should watch for?
The red flags for phone calls are typically pressure to act immediately. It's kind of the same thing we've talked about before. It is always an emergency. And it's the cardinal rule. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Same thing, if it's too bad to be true, it probably is, right? Because as much as I would love for crimes or things to be solved within 10 minutes or an hour, DNA to come back, that's just not how the world works, right? So there's something that can't be taken care of typically within a couple of hours, right? If some money has been transferred and they're saying, if you don't fix this now, they're going to come and arrest you. That's not how the system works. It takes months and months of investigation and things like that for anything like that to happen. And so it is pressure to act immediately. Request for payments in an odd manner. Gift cards.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scams we have. Go and withdraw money and then go purchase Walmart gift cards and then send them to this, that's probably like everyone goes, oh, I would never fall for that. But it happens, right? The Bitcoin, go and take this. We've had upwards of 15,000 to $20,000 put in a Bitcoin machine in an
Mm.
urgency. And it just, it was a scam, right? And they'll take any amount of money. They'll take $1 or they'll take thousands and thousands. So, weird types of payments. That's a red flag. Someone asking for your codes or your passwords or your account access is always a red flag. You should never be giving that out. Bank of America and those credit card companies aren't going to ask you for what's your full account number. They have it on the screen in front of them,
Right.
but they're not going to ask you for those types of things. So that's a red flag. So pressure to act immediately, request for weird types of payments, or someone asking for your codes, passwords, account access. Again, the caller ID. For some reason, if it fills off, or I just, rule number one, if they call me first, I hang up and then I Google and I call back. That should be rule number one, right? And anyone telling you not to talk to anybody else, don't tell anybody else this is going on. They'll get in trouble, or just, we need to take care of this now. No, you don't need to call your husband. We've got to take care of this now. Those types of things. When they try to isolate you, that's your red flags.
Wow. So much good information. So many things we need to be watching out for. But I guess when you start thinking like that, then it becomes your natural reaction is, I'll check.
Yes, and I think that's it. It's kind of muscle memory for anything. And it's just like, just continue to do this in every situation. And then suddenly it'll be like, you know what, I'm going to call you back and then verify. And then you're like, nope. And that's the best way. I wish there was a tool I could say, here's the tool to prevent you ever being a victim of fraud. That
Yeah.
tool does not exist. But these tools in your toolbox can very much protect you as much as possible from being a victim of fraud.
Yeah. I think my thing is I'm moving so fast that I see something on the internet or something and I'm just click here, and I don't read the whole thing through carefully. So it would be a deal where slow down, pause counts.
Yes, right. We're all living busy lives, and that's okay. But at the same time, is that the way we should be living? And
Exactly.
the answer is no. And there are some things where we do have to take care of them relatively urgently. But most things we just need to take a breath. And it's not asking you to take days. It's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, things like that. But yes, we have to slow down. That's good for our hearts. That's good for our health, good for our brain anyway. So we just kind of need to be vigilant and just slow down a bit.
Slow down a bit. Yeah, slow down a bit. So if you were going to give a final safeguard, if say somebody has been scammed and they don't know what to do now, what can you
Okay,
give them a step to follow what they could do?
sure. Uh, if you have been scammed and you need to report, that's the biggest thing I could say.
Okay.
So what I want to say is there's still a stigma, and there probably always will be, unfortunately, around being scammed. The number one tool the criminals have is embarrassment, is
Mhm.
shame, right? And that tool is hard for me as a prosecutor or law enforcement to ever get past because guess what? It doesn't get reported. It doesn't get told to anyone, so we can't fix it. Now, I will tell you the sad part, and I hope this gets better over the years, is that oftentimes we can't recover the money. It's too late, and a lot of that happens because of a delay of reporting or a lack of reporting. We've had many cases where we've had a victim, and then we look more into it, and we find a multitude of victims, but they never reported it, and it's mostly because of shame. And so the only shame is shame on the criminals, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to report. You've got to report. Another obstacle, and this is just kind of the system until we can get a little bit better at it, is a lot of times we get what we feel like is a door in our face when we report something to law enforcement. They say, oh, that's a civil matter or things like that. Report it. You've got to push to report it. You don't have to be difficult, but you need to push to report it and say, listen, I was scammed. A fraud was committed. I want to make a report. The other thing is that oftentimes companies like your bank or a credit card won't give you your money back or flag it as fraud unless you have a police report. So
Okay.
that's crucial as well, is that oftentimes on the backside to recover or stop your credit or to clean up your credit, you can put a police report in there and say, I reported this as fraud. And so the biggest thing is don't be embarrassed. It's happened to me. It happens to everybody. And so don't be embarrassed. Don't feel shame. It's okay because it happens. And we just need to know so we can try to either recover your money or protect you from it happening again and protect others from it happening again.
Yeah. That is such good information. Oh my goodness. Thank you. You've been such a help in getting people knowledge and what do I do if it happens and how do I keep it from happening if at all possible.
Absolutely. And I just want to kind of finish up with this. Scammers don't need you to be naive. They just need you to be busy, distracted, or rushed. Slow down, and that's your power.
Wow. Simple and profound, but so, so true. Thank you for your time and for your work among people that are suffering through these types of losses. And I hope to see you again and all the best in your job and your work.
I would love that. And thank you for all you do. You're a crucial and important part of helping people recover and move forward. And that's our mission here, is to help, to serve, and to protect.
I've been carrying these shadows like they're safer in the dark. Every silent tear I buried left an echo in my heart. But you whisper through the breaking, through the ache and through the scars. There's a future in the waiting. There is treasure where we are. You don't waste a single sorrow. You don't turn away from pain. Every valley tells a story of revival after rain. Your healing feelings I was hiding, calling courage from the deep. Every secret in my heart you are gently uncovering. And you say I have a future far beyond what I can see. You're restoring me. I was scared to lift the curtain on the chambers of my soul, afraid the light would show me all the broken, shattered hope. But your love is not accusing, it's a fire that refines every buried dream awakening, every lost piece realigned. You are riding hope in ashes, you are breathing life again. Where the wound was once defining, now your promise stands within. Your healing feelings I was hiding, calling courage from the deep. Every secret in my heart you are gently uncovering. And you say I have a future far beyond what I can see, as the truth becomes my freedom. You're restoring me. So I'll open every doorway, let your light come pouring in. Every question, every memory, every place I've never been. If the secret leads to healing, if surrender makes me whole, then uncover every hidden thing and resurrect my soul. Your healing feelings I was hiding, turning fear to destiny. Every secret in my heart becomes a path to victory. And I know you hold my future written in eternity, as your love reveals the truth. You are restoring me. There is purpose in the breaking, there is mercy in the fall. When you uncover what's inside me, you were healing it all.
For more information, check out griefguideministries.com.